Here we are together, and welcome for our chance to interview and be present with the incredible Steve Beattie. Steve is a breathwork instructor and guide at Breathing in Nature. And we got connected a couple of years ago through a mutual friend, and for the last 2 years have been collaborating, co-creating and supporting each other, which is just such a gift. And Steve, I cannot tell you how grateful I am to have you as a part of the EFI gym, and knowing that each week you're showing up and gifting us with your guidance through the mindful meditation moment and also your signature program, the Stoic Breath. So I want to say a really big thank you for being here tonight to share and guide us, continue guiding us and sharing your wisdom as well. Yay!
It is an honor to be here. This is very exciting, and it's a pleasure to be part of this whole project that you're undertaking. It's very exciting.
I love it. I love it.
Love helping people any way that we can.
And that's the beauty of it, right? So I thought I'd invite us all as we get settled in to take a breath together, right? Knowing that we've come from wherever the day has been. So yeah, a big breath in and a big breath out. Maybe take a hand to the heart and a hand to the belly and close the eyes if that feels good. And just drop in and notice the breath. Big breath in. And as Steve says, a big sigh of good feelings. Wiggle the toes. Gently blink back, open the eyes. It's one of my favorite pieces of guidance that you give, that sigh of good feelings. Why don't we just start there? We're rolling with this. Tell me where that phrase comes from, why you share that.
That wasn't on the questions you said you were going to ask. It just, pretty much everything that I do just came to me as I was doing it. I know after I do breath work, cold exposure, any sort of big things that I do, or even just a quiet meditation, I like to make a sound, just to really let my voice out. And so I just came that way. And after we've been breathing, we'll probably get deeper into this, but when we've been doing the Stoic Breath, we're deeply connected to the physical body after that kind of breath work. We know where all our pieces and parts are. And so when you let out a big, loud sigh and you feel it vibrate through you, it just vibrates that energy that's already there and just lets the emotions come out. And when you throw in the words of, sigh of good feelings, you're already feeling pretty blissed out. And now you hear good feelings. Wow. And you feel your good feelings and you hear them. So that just came to me.
I love it.
Where most of it comes from.
It's like that piece of permission that we don't realize we need sometimes to lean into and embrace those better feelings. I love it.
And a lot of people, they don't like to make noise at all. And in a classic meditation setting where we're in a studio with all these people that we don't know, we just came from the office and our shirts are too tight and our pants are too uncomfortable and we're sitting there meditating and trying to be in the zone. And you just want to get the hell out of there afterwards. That's usually what happens in meditation studios. Nobody wants to make a noise, but we're online. All the microphones have gone quiet. Cameras are off. Make as much noise as you can. We're supposed to make noise. Let it happen. Whatever you're called to make, do it. It's been a big gift this past year going online. I know we're all kind of annoyed and frustrated at this point when they can't I just go and hug people again? But at the same time, people are able to do stuff that they weren't able to do before because they're just holding back too much.
And I think that is truly one of the most beautiful aspects of having these modalities that are able to be guided via the digital virtual medium as well. And it's this sense of you realize you're not going to interrupt anybody else's experience, right? We're also kind and caring about like, oh, I don't want to interrupt that person or worry about what they're thinking of me. It's like, no, let's just let it all out. Oh, I love it. So breath work. I saw a fact recently, did you know that in our lifetime, we will take up to 850 million breaths?
lot of breaths.
A lot of breaths, right?
Mm.
So I'm curious and I'd love for you to share with us breathwork. How did it enter into your life? How did you become this incredible guide that we are so lucky to
Mm.
practice with? And when was it that you understood that it was something you wanted to be able to guide other people with?
Mm-hmm. Um, like so many things in people's lives, it was I was going through a transition point in my life. I had hit a health crisis. It was this very slow moving train wreck of a health crisis, but it was slowly developing, getting worse and worse and worse, to the point where in my early, this is 8 years now, I think I was 42. And that's right, I'm turning 50 this year.
I was like, what?
What? Everybody's doing the math. What? I don't die this in. This is all natural. But is in my early 40s, I was lying in a hospital bed thinking, I'm going to die. This is messed up. And I was the healthy guy. I was a personal trainer. I was a sponsored athlete. I did multi-day adventure racing. I was a sports nutritionist. I was doing everything right. I specialized in making people healthy, yet I was falling apart and getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And it really escalated after my son, Robbie, was born when I was 36. And then the next 6 years, I just went downhill fast. And it was in that crisis point where I needed to find a way to heal my body. The doctors had an idea. They had some drugs they wanted to give me. And while it's true I wouldn't have died of the disease that I had, I would have died of something else if I had gone that route. And a friend of mine at work asked me if I'd ever heard of Wim Hof, the Iceman. Everybody's heard of Wim Hof, the Iceman now. But back then, 8 years ago, no one had. But I had. I had heard of this crazy guy who liked going to the cold and doing all this cold stuff. I saw a documentary years before that of him running a marathon in the Arctic in just shorts. That's pretty neat. I like the cold too. Never thought anything about it again. But the Wim Hof method is this breathing exercise, this breathing technique where you breathe in and out 30 or 40 times and you exhale and hold your breath without air. And you repeat that 3 or 4 times. And then there's some cold exposure stuff that goes along with that. But his method was really beneficial to people who were suffering from inflammatory disorders, which is what I was suffering from. I had rheumatoid arthritis. And I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. I've got nothing to lose. And so I didn't give it a shot right away. Even though I was sick, even though my body was falling apart, I was reading about this thing, studying all this documentation, the science. I was watching these videos of them, wasn't doing it, wasn't activated enough to actually do it. And months went by until I finally sat down in my living room and over and over and over again, I felt like I was just tripping out. My body was just vibrating. I was dizzy. There was like pops and flashes of color. I was just out of it. Held my breath for a long time. Did 3 rounds that first time, and I felt better. This discomfort I had in my body was gone. 20 minutes. Wow, what is this? And so that launched me into breath work and the Wim Hof method. And I did the advanced course, really loved it, started to feel some stuff happening inside of me. And I was already working as a fitness instructor. I taught other fitness professionals, fitness modalities. I taught fascial stretch therapy and other fitness things to professionals. So as a teacher, I love teaching. I love sharing knowledge. So I thought, I should teach this to people. This is like really beneficial to everyone. So I became an instructor. Not just like that. I did the advanced course and then got accepted into the master's program in Australia, in Melbourne. So if we didn't meet each other here, we would have met each other there. So
I love it.
And it was there in Australia where my real healing began. So there was about a 5-year journey from when I first started the Wim Hof method to when I became an instructor. And I was managing my disease. I wasn't sick. I wasn't in a state of inflammation. My body didn't hurt anymore. I had a lot of energy. I was exercising properly again. Like all this stuff was coming. I felt great, just really good. But there was this thing there, and I didn't know what it was. It crept up a little bit when I was in the advanced program in California, where we did this long extended breath practice. I didn't know you could do more than 3 or 4 rounds. We were breathing for 90 minutes. Who knew you could do that? And I was just completely losing it. Like everybody was like out of it. And I started to feel this weird thing bubbling up inside of me. I don't like that. Get rid of that. Push that back down. Put that away. We don't do that. Then I went off to Australia. And on the first day of this 5-day course in Australia, we were told to meditate on our blockage. I don't have a blockage. I don't know what that is. Whatever. Every day, meditate on the blockage. Write in your journal. Do this breath work and this meditation, this cold exposure, more breath work. Meditate on your blockage. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. The days go by, and is again on the last day, day 5, we were doing this long extended breath work again. A lot of breath work, really vigorous, in and out, rhythmic breathing, holds at the top of your lungs, holds at the bottom. It's kind of where the Stoic Breath started to get its little beginnings from. And at the end of that, I was feeling, that's that thing. It's like getting in the way again. I'll just push, it's going to get in the way of me finding my blockage. Push that back down.
Where could it be?
Where could it be? What is that thing? And then we went into the ice water for the last time on this 5-day trip. And I was in the ice water with Wim Hof. And when you do an ice bath, cold exposure, you feel this overwhelming stress just explode through you. You gasp in and you have to breathe out and you control your breath and manage that stress response and calm yourself down. Use your breath to control yourself. And it's at the end of that where you go into this wonderful blissed out state, and it's such a pure meditation. There's no outside world. There's nothing. It's just you in a pure, absolute moment in time. There's nothing else. There's no past. There's no future. It's just you. And it's in that moment where something went snap. And it's like my brain was a Rubik's Cube and it clicked and all the colors lined up for the first time in my life. And I remember that happening. I opened my eyes and went, and I found my blockage. And this thing that was inside of me exploded out of me. And I broke into tears, just broke down. Just all this stuff came pouring out of me. And I tried and I couldn't put it away. It just came pouring out of me. And I laid in that ice water for 10 minutes, bawling my eyes out and laughing hysterically at the same time. It was like matched, just going all out.
Expression.
Yeah. And then I got out of the ice water, and my good friend, who I'm still good friends with, Asher, he saw me and he just put his arm around me. And again, just out it came. I couldn't stop. It went over hours. And it was the first time I cried in 32 years. When I was about 12 or 13 years old, I turned off my emotional response to the world. I chose not to feel what was happening in my life. And that's how that was my survival mechanism. But that took its toll on my body. So I became an adult all through my 20s, all through my 30s. It was just building and building and building, and then not feeling it, not recognizing the stuff inside of me until it popped. It was when my son popped, when I had a son, and I realized now, okay, I have a child, and I had to face my own childhood and think, how did that happen? I was a victim of child abuse growing up. And I still didn't want to deal with it, but it got worse because now I have my own child that I'm holding and being a father to, and still denying myself all my own experience. And so finally releasing that. And it was in that moment, this is a long-winded story of how I became a breathwork instructor, but it was in that moment where I knew that this is what I am meant to do, is to teach other people to heal themselves through breathwork and movement. And so that's what I do.
Whew.
And that's how I got to know.
I
And
have,
when I got back to Canada, it was funny. Well, that flight from Australia is long. It's
oh
really long.
yeah.
After you've sat on a plane longer than you've ever sat on any plane ever in your entire life, you still have 10 hours to go on the plane. It's horrible. But I got back to Canada, and my wife's picking me up at the airport, and she didn't run up to me and throw her arms around me. Oh, I missed you. She looked at me and said, "You've changed." And just everything had changed. Like my aura, the energy around me had changed. I was different. I was a different man entirely. And that was 4 years, 4.5. It's going on 5 years now. 4 years. It's 4 years, nearly 4 years now, where I've been growing, like going through these emotions and learning to feel and express and understand. So it was an emotional awakening, which turned into about 2 years ago a spiritual awakening. At the same time, I used to call myself an atheist, and I was a very strident atheist of the Richard Dawkins kind. Like any kind of spirituality is just rubbish. But in this process I've been going through, this awakening that I've experienced, I don't call myself an atheist anymore. There's so much more. People are always surprised when I said that, because I've always been a very spiritual person, but my spirituality has always been very connected to wilderness, to the outdoors, hence breathing in nature.
Hence breathing in nature. Oh, Steve, I'm sure that I'm speaking on behalf of myself and the members that are on the call witnessing this live with you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your truth in such an open and vulnerable way. Like that's a remarkable story and a beautiful, beautiful demonstration of the power of learning to love and accept yourself and turning towards the blockages, the unprocessed emotion, the trauma that is there in our bodies. We know that it's so much a part of our physiology. And that
very much so, which the irony of all of this is I'm a fascial stretch therapist. So I mobilize people's fascia. Fascia is a connective tissue in your body. It holds you. It is the extension of your mind and your spirit. And it supports your nervous system, your vascular system. It supports everything. Every cell in your body is connected to the next cell through fascia. We have a net that runs through us. And it holds our memories, and it holds our pain, and it holds our trauma. And I specialize in working with people with chronic pain. And what I found as an FST, fascial stretch therapist, they come in with their chronic pain and ask, "Where's your pain?" And they couldn't tell me. Their shoulder hurt. Well, where in your shoulder? I don't know, my shoulder. Point to your pain. It's in my shoulder. There was no connection to where it was, just that there was pain. And so I do FST with them, and I'd mobilize that tissue. And they would always have some form of an emotional release, whatever it was. Sometimes breaking into laughter. Sometimes they would just become very, very talkative. Sometimes they'd go very, very quiet, and you could feel them just sinking down. And a few times people broke into tears, like just big sobbing tears, just letting it go. Wow, that's weird. Whatever that stuff is, put that away. But then the pain was gone and it never came back. So I was doing this, but not doing it for myself.
Yes. Well, that's always the irony. We give and we give and we give and we care outward. And then when we are at the end of our rope, we tend to look inward and turn that same attention back. And I guess like kind of just to touch on the beautiful experience that we've shared in the past, where introducing you to tapping and helping you with the chronic pain in your right hip.
Yeah.
Right?
It is just more the irony, like all this, like doing this for other people, but then not believing, not that I didn't do it for myself because I didn't love myself. I didn't do it for myself because I didn't believe in it. Yet I was doing it for other people.
Yeah.
But the tapping journey was amazing, because I had chronic pain in my body, in my right hip, just always sore, like from as far back as I could remember, probably right around when I stopped feeling emotions, my hip started to get sore, and it was always sore. Now, I could loosen it up. I could still do sports. It didn't stop me from doing anything, but it would stop me from sitting on the floor cross-legged.
Mm.
It would be uncomfortable if I sat in a car too long. So it was just uncomfortable all the time. And it was through tapping that I tapped into it, and a lot of stuff, a lot of anger came out of me, anger and fear that, Kelsey, you guided me through that and held that space for me to allow me to feel and express and let it out. And it was a pretty powerful thing. And then the pain was gone. The pain was gone and never came back. I shouldn't say it never came back. It is my early warning signal. Now, when I feel a little discomfort in there, when I go into my meditation and I collect my Jedi council around me, and we talk about to all the pieces of me, we all come together and we say, okay, which one of you is doing this? Oh, it's that, right? Let's deal with that then. Yeah. So, and it's usually associated with family emotional stuff. Well, I have a teenage son, so it's always has something to do. So it has something to do with that almost always.
I love it. And I appreciate how we've just, I guess, demonstrated and shared the way in which all of these modalities so beautifully complement each other and weave together to come to that same underlying focus, is to helping the trapped emotion move through our bodies. Emotions, energy in motion. Once we allow them to move through us and we take the learnings and the lessons from them, then we can be pain-free, we can be lighter, we can be more ourselves through the experience. And that's one of the reasons why I just adore the fact that we have breathwork as one of the modalities in the gym, because it's a way in which to tune in and tap into yourself, breathe into yourself, that is both active but also passive, right? Like it's kind of disconnected, but you're so physically in it. It's that meditative state and the rhythm that you get into. I never forget my first session with you, and then having it as part of my regular weekly routine since starting the gym. It's a game changer, the way that the momentum really helps to build up. My body literally on Thursday mornings is like, we're breathing tonight. I get excited. I know it. My nervous system is aware it's an opportunity for it to release, to let go of all the tension that it's holding. So I'd love for you, Steve, to share with us, because you gave us a little bit of a hint as to where the Stoic breath came from, but the way in which, and a number of the questions that came through from the community as well, the aspects of the Stoic breath particularly that you teach, the lifting from the root and the connection of the energy up through the chakra system to your third eye and the crown, right? Like, so I'd love for you to touch on that and the importance and the value from the breath holds. So fire away, share with us, please.
So I'll deconstruct the Stoic breath a little bit, and there's when we start the breath class, we just sit still and observe the breath. And I always say, whatever resonates with you, whatever part of your breath, oh, there's my breath. And it might be just feeling of air through your nose or the rise and fall of your belly, whatever it is. Just that very act of noticing your breath changes the way your brain works right away. And after just, a minute or two of this, you activate a part of your brain called the anterior cingulum. I had to dig deep. I had to dig into my anterior cingulum for that one. There it is. It's in there somewhere. But it's a piece of your brain, prefrontal cortex, that is attached to your amygdala, and notices your stress and emotional response. So it lets this part of you know how you're feeling. We have primary emotions, which are over like that, just a flash, and we're finished with the primary emotion. And then we start dwelling on about how I feel about that emotion. And those are our secondary emotions. And that's where we get stuck. And we just dwell and we stew and we just sink down into that, and we don't get over it.
Can I jump in here? Because you hit exactly on the fact, like we're stressed about our stress. We worry that we're worrying. We're frustrated that we get frustrated. Like the judgment of our emotional experience is what keeps us in that emotional experience.
Exactly. And we don't even know we're there. right? It's so when we just notice the breath, is when that anterior cingulum kicks back and says, hey, you're feeling stressed. I'm going, oh, I'm feeling stressed. Why am I feeling stressed? Because now our prefrontal cortex is lighting up. And this is the thing, the prefrontal cortex is the thing that makes us us. It makes us humans. And elephants and whales, as a matter of fact. And what?
And connects us with the conscious mind, right?
Yes.
The conscious and the subconscious. Like when you're saying we don't even realize, it's because our subconscious is taking care of everything for us. We're functioning predominantly the breath, right? Like the breath is happening subconsciously.
Yep.
When we bring it to that conscious awareness, that's when we can put two and two together.
Yeah. Everything just happens in the background all the time. And our emotions are happening in the background. So it's when we take that moment to observe that and we think, oh, I'm feeling like this and I'm feeling like this because of this stuff. So now we've set the stage. And that's just noticing the breath. And then we start to go into that rhythmic breath where you now take control of your breath. And so when you take control of your breath, like I just said, our breath happens in the background, happens in the base of our skull, in our spinal column. We don't think about it. We wouldn't be able to function if we had to think about breathing, right? Like if you were to do the Stoic breath all day long, that would be horrible.
Or would it?
Or would it? New class starting now. So when we take control of it, we then start to light up different parts of our brain. And one of the things that happens is we light up our body awareness. So we suddenly become acutely aware of us. We know where all of our parts are.
Out of here.
Out of here, into here. What is this? For people who have done plant medicines, there's the thing called the LSD hand. People always go, what is this? And they start looking at their hand going, I have a hand? Because you're experiencing yourself in a different way. It happens in the Stoic breath too. And when we did this live events with people, I would see people coming out of it and they're looking at themselves going, wow, what is all this? They're suddenly aware of it. Because for so many people, our body awareness ends sort of at our ears. All this down here is just to cause pain and disappoint us. That's it. We're just not connected. And now suddenly we're acutely connected to our bodies. Oh, wow, I feel like everything, to the point where you feel even more than your body. Like your awareness is reaching outside of your physical structures now. And you have a sense of stuff around you. Like you can feel with your eyes closed, you can feel the shape of the room you're in and the chairs that are in your room. You just have this awareness of something greater suddenly as your awareness expands. So that's the rhythmic breathing. And it was through that sudden reconnection to a deeper awareness of my body, that as I was breathing, I started to feel like I had a pulse at the base of my spine, like in my pelvic floor. It was, as I was breathing in, there was a pulse every time I was breathing in. And I could use muscles to contract that and increase that pulse action as I was breathing in. Going, what is that? That feels really nice. I like getting really high doing this. And I was having greater visual effects. More DMT was being released through breathwork, and I was seeing visions and swirls of light and having out-of-body experiences by doing this.
And can you mention there about the way that we naturally produce DMT in the body?
Yeah. So then I asked another breathwork instructor, a pranayamic instructor, when I do breathwork, I feel like I need to squeeze from my groin. And she said, well, yeah, that's the Kundalini rising within you. On the Kundi what now? And so I looked into the chakras and the energy systems in the body, and I, wow, this is weird. They didn't teach me this in personal training school for some reason. And so then I realized there was an energy moving through me, but then I want to know what else, like why does that make DMT happen? And so I was looking at the mechanics of breath work and when we breathe properly. And we know when you breathe, when you take a breath in, your ribs open and close, they open, expand, and contract. But deep down inside of us, our pelvis opens and closes ever so slightly. there's a pressure buildup as you breathe in and then a release as you breathe out. If you're breathing from your diaphragm is anchored to the muscles within your pelvic floor. So if you have an instability in your pelvis, you can't breathe properly. The deep rotators of the hip are acutely connected through the fascial chain to the arches of your feet. So if you have poor foot function, you can't breathe properly.
Wow. We are interconnected, aren't we? Every part of us is working together.
And our feet are there to feel the earth beneath us. That's what feet are for. And the first thing we do is we put shoes on people and say, never feel the earth again. And then men are bad for this too, but women are much worse. They try and cram their feet into little tiny shoes and make their toes all pointy and crushed and broken. And so you're completely disconnected from the earth. Now your feet don't work. Your hips don't work. So you can't anchor your diaphragm. You can't breathe properly. Okay, hold on. Somebody's... Sorry, there's a maintenance worker here. There's flooding in the apartment below me.
Oh no.
Can we pause for 1 second?
We can pause, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, hold on. Sorry, everyone. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back. I love it. I'll take a sip of tea. How are we doing? That's an amazing and beautiful story. Isn't it incredible? Thanks for noting that there, Jenna. Wowza. Whew. It is. Super fun times. Who would be interested in a 90-minute Stoic Breath session? You didn't hear me say that. I was putting out there, Steve, to everyone. Yeah, I still can't believe Steve is 50. Just popped up in the chat. Not yet.
Not yet. A few months yet. September.
September?
Yeah. 25th.
There we go. I was just putting it out there. I was like, who would be interested in experiencing a 90-minute Stoic Breath? Maybe we could do a special one time. That's one thing that popped into my mind. Yeah,
I do those. I used to do those live all the time.
Love it.
Yeah, and would often tie that into a deep shadow or future self meditation as well. Good times.
Beautiful. And absolutely, Brenda, 50 is awesome. Brenda's there with you, Steve.
50 is nifty.
I love it. I love it. So all is well in the house?
Yeah, everything's fine. Yeah,
okay.
Everything's fine.
All right. So
DMT is where we were.
DMT is where we were.
So when everything's working properly and we're breathing deeply from our diaphragm and it's putting pressure into our pelvic floor and our pelvis opens and closes, that starts to create a movement of cerebral spinal fluid. So you get a little pump action within your spine itself where you squeeze cerebral spinal fluid up your spine, around your head and back down. You get a big circulation of fluid. And where we make cerebral spinal fluid at the base of our skull is also an area where we produce DMT. So when we start activating the production of cerebral spinal fluid, it is possible, we don't know, but it is highly likely, but it's possible that we're also increasing DMT production within the cerebral spinal fluid itself.
And what exactly is DMT?
Dimethyltryptamine. It is the God molecule. Is its nickname because it is what makes people trip out. People who've gone on ayahuasca journeys or who've done bufo, which is the frog secretion that you smoke. Those are the natural variations of DMT, plant-based and animal-based. They also manufacture in 5-EMO DMT and stuff like that. So there's lots of different sources of it, but it's a very, very powerful psychedelic or psychotropic drug that can change the way you experience life forever after doing one of these journeys, an ayahuasca journey or bufo or whatever it might be.
And we have the power within us to create an experience connected to it. I'm sure it's not quite as...
once you know your way in, you don't need a lot of DMT to have those very profound experiences. Once you know the way in, these psychedelic drugs are just keys to help unlock a way into your mind. That's all they are.
Okay.
And so once you know the journey inwards, you can go there anytime you want. You just have to know how to get there. And breath work is one of the ways to get there. But so we develop this DMT in our spinal fluid, but we also develop it or release it in our pineal gland, which is very deep inside of the brain. And it is now believed that we also make DMT in our lungs. So when we breathe a lot, we're going to produce DMT, which will go into our bloodstream as well. Some research suggests that we produce DMT in a lot of places in our body. And from a scientific point of view, we don't know why we have it. There's no real reason to have it except for having these spiritual experiences, which is why it's called the God molecule. And when people die, they release a tremendous amount of DMT. They flood their body with it. It all comes pouring out. There is elevated levels of DMT during dream cycles. The precursors to DMT is melatonin. So serotonin is a precursor to melatonin, which is a precursor to DMT. So you need to have all these things in place to be able to make DMT. And the best way to increase your serotonin levels is to have a meditation or a mindfulness practice. So it's all full circle.
All connects. I love it. And so then we've got the activation, we've got the pumping motion, and we do that over and over with the rhythmic breathing and the beautiful flow of that. And then you ask us to breathe deeply in.
And let it go. And then I ask you to stop. Now, this is where the Stoic Breath differs a lot from the Wim Hof method. I don't ask you to hold your breath. You don't hold your breath. You and then stop. You're not forcing yourself to do anything. You're just not breathing anymore. Now, you've just spent all this time using your big smart monkey brain to make yourself breathe in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, and now you stop, and now your little reptile brain says, hey, we should breathe. Shouldn't we be breathing? And that's when I say, go beyond your desire to breathe. Just let that go. I'm not going to breathe. I don't need to breathe. And so you go deeper and deeper into this no breathing. And what happens is you go into hypoxia. So you go into a low oxygen environment without the desire to breathe at all, apart from that initial reflex, which you go beyond. What happens when we're breathing deeply in and out is that you are not breathing in oxygen. You are, but you're not increasing oxygen in your body. What you're doing is breathing out CO2. You're blowing CO2 out of your body, and you're lowering your CO2 levels. CO2 is why we breathe. We don't breathe because we need oxygen. We breathe because we need to get rid of CO2. That's why we breathe. CO2 is a byproduct of cellular respiration. So we have to get rid of it. When you're doing a lot of exercise, your cells are working really hard to make energy, so you have more CO2 in your body, so you have to blow it off quicker. That's why we breathe. We're not trying to breathe in more oxygen because there isn't enough in us. There's lots of, if you're healthy, you have lots of oxygen. Lots and lots of oxygen. It's because of CO2. So you blow off all this CO2 and then you stop. Go beyond your desire to breathe, and you just don't breathe. And your CO2 is so low as your cells are doing their stuff, making stuff happen. Your CO2 is slowly creeping up, slowly creeping up, slowly creeping up. But because it was so low, all your oxygen is being used up. And now you go into hypoxia. You have low oxygen in your body, but you have no desire to breathe because you don't have enough CO2 in you. So your body goes, are we dying? Yes. In that moment, you are microdosing death. And your body says, all right, let's prepare for this. And we shunt blood into our core, into our heart, and we open up blood vessels into our brain. So we increase circulation to our brain in hypoxia. And it's also been found that we have dormant blood vessels in our brain, which open up again. And we flood more of the last little bit of oxygen we have into our brain. And our body says, well, let's get the DMT going. We're dying. So you start to have this trippy feeling. And then eventually we breathe in, big rush of oxygen into our body, but all of our blood vessels are sending everything right to our brain. When you get that rush into the head of oxygen and just lights the brain up. And you can do this if you have a Muse headband. You have to get a secondary app to show all the different brain waves and where it's being activated. But your brain lights up like a Christmas tree. It is amazing what happens in there. So your brain is just, everything is lit up. You're just like everything is going. So that's why we do it. That's what's going on. And then you also get, your body rewards you for breathing in, so you get a big rush of dopamine. So you feel really good. You feel that, you get that blissed out state as well. It's called dope for a reason.
There you go.
It's true.
You are full of fun facts.
And incidentally, the rhythmic breathing, not only does it increase your body awareness, but it also activates your cannabinoid receptors in your body as well. So it prepares you to feel good. And then you release the dopamine. And so all your cannabinoid receptors are lit up and you just get this rush of good feelings all over your body.
Wow. Well, if this wasn't incentive enough to say, well, yes, breathwork is a must to be a part of the emotional fitness experience that you're having, the journey that you're on for connecting to self, to caring for yourself. Why is it that you structure it to have kind of the, is it 3 or 4 repetitions of this that we do each class?
3 or 4.
Yeah. Is there, do you find that there's a sweet spot? Because tonight's the first time hearing about the 90 minutes. So like we have the 45-minute session, and obviously time is also a contributor.
It's because of time, really. When I do my own session, it's a full hour. And there's no instructions for me at the beginning. I get right into it. It's just a full hour of breathing and meditating. There's no, you need a couple rounds to get into it. You'll notice that usually the first round is just deep, slow, steady breath, often just a relaxed release. It's not a rhythmic in and out. It's just a over and over again.
Kind of like a warm-up round.
It's exactly. It's a warm-up round. People come to this, they're all wound up, stressed out. And when we're stressed, we have a stress breath, and we gasp in, and then we that's where we breathe when we're stressed out. Hopefully not that extreme, but it's all stuck up here. When we breathe with our secondary respiratory muscles, and we're usually stressed out sitting down at our desks, slouched over, shoulders rolled forward, in a position of fear, our diaphragm can't work properly, and we're just over and over again. Our breath is inverted. It should be to a pause at the bottom, and then an in, out to a pause. When we're stressed, it's out, in, out, in. So it's completely upside down. And everything is tight through here. So that first round is just getting into your breath, focusing on that diaphragm, breathing deeply in and out. And those long, slow exhales, it's going to down-regulate you from that stressed out, sympathetic fight or flight to that rested, parasympathetic rest and digest and trip out on DMT. So it's that long, slow. And so you get to the second round, you're like, I feel pretty good now. I'm all relaxed. All my muscles are gone. And now I can start that deeper rhythmic breathing. That's a common mistake I see in the Wim Hof method in world. People are all stressed out and they have a dysfunctional breath practice or breath pattern. And then they start the Wim Hof method and just, why does my neck hurt when I do the breathing exercise? Because you're not breathing.
So it's only contributing to the state that they're already in rather than undoing it and resetting it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. We take 20,000 breaths a day. And so many people don't do them properly. If you did any exercise 20,000 times incorrectly, you're injured.
Yeah. Fair point. What's your top tip then for improving our breathing? A daily little tip that we can implement.
Check in with your diaphragm. Learn to breathe from your diaphragm. So there's exercises you can do. That's one of the main things I teach. My whole course is teaching people how to breathe properly. Learn to breathe from your diaphragm. When you reestablish a diaphragmatic connection to your breath, yes, you're going to have stressed out moments in life. We all do. I do all the time, every day, several times a day. It's like, oh, just hold on, loosen up my shoulders, center myself, let my belly go. That's another thing that we do in the Western world. I better suck it. I better have a six-pack abs. Not a chance. But I better suck that in and make it nice and tight. And so we don't want to breathe from our belly because we might look fat if we do that.
Mm-hmm.
Let it go. Let your belly go. Put your hand on your belly and feel that breath come from your belly. And then just sit with that for just a couple minutes. That's it. And you'll notice just that 2-3 minutes of feeling your belly breathe. You're paying attention to your breath. You're activating that part of your brain that says, hey, emotions, calm down back there. We got this. We're a human. We can do it.
Humans feel emotions?
Apparently.
Right? So you touched on a little bit there. I'm excited for you to share about your course and tie this in, please, with the reflection around making breathwork part of a habit, building the momentum. As I shared, I've loved having it as a weekly practice. I know that you would be saying to me, Kels, it needs to be more than once a week. So at least it's starting there. But please share about your course and your advice on how to make breathing part of our lives.
You need to have some sort of daily practice of mindfulness, something. I think it should be breath work, but it can be anything. And the point of it is having a specific moment of mindfulness, meditation, where you sit down and this is my time to really focus on being mindful. That makes all of your day mindful. So you practice these small moments and then it trickles out into your day. Now, when we use breath work as our tool to be mindful, there will always be a part of us that is mindful of our breath, that we always notice. And then you'll be in that stressful situation. You'll notice that before you notice that I'm getting angry. You notice your breath change and like, oh, I better at the right time. If you're being attacked by a bear, stay angry, keep breathing. But you'll notice, and this is a study done at an Italian university where they took a number of university-age people with anxiety disorders, medicated, and they taught them a simple breath awareness meditation. They all had a marked improvement in their anxiety disorders, and many of them went off medication. Because what happened was they noticed that their breath changed before they noticed the anxiety. So their breath changed before their brain noticed. And we can go into a whole thing about consciousness and how we're just along for the ride here. Everything is happening before we know it happens. But being aware of your breath, having your breath as an anchor for mindfulness means you'll always be aware of what's going on and be able to modulate that. So my course teaches people exactly that, how to breathe again. And so we start by opening up the fascial net in the body to open up the hips, to find that balance between diaphragm and hips again. Release any fascial adhesions along the diaphragm through self-myofascial release, just to open it up. It feels kind of weird because you got to dig your fingers in underneath your ribs. Feels like you're bruising your liver a little bit, but you're not, probably not. But it feels really good when you're done. And then just learning how to breathe that three-dimensional belly. So you don't just breathe out. That's the other common breath pattern that I would see when I worked at the gym. People know that they're supposed to breathe from their belly, so they just push their belly out when they breathe. That's not. It is a three-dimensional expansion, interior, lateral, and posterior. It expands in all directions. You don't just push it out, pull it back in again. That's a different type of breathing. So we learn to breathe with the diaphragm. again. And then I take people through different breath exercises on how to manage what's going on in life, whether it's stress or they need to calm down, they need to go to sleep, or they need to ramp themselves up and change distress to eustress. Stress is important. You need stress in your life. That's how we stay alive. You need stress, but you don't need the bad stress. You don't need to be all wound up and spinning around and just agitated. But when you're in that state, you can take that and turn it into focus. And then that goes on into eventually growing into the Stoic Breath at the end of that course as well. But you get all these tools, a lot of meditation downloads to have on your phone whenever you want, so you can just tap into it and listen to a little guided meditation on changing whatever it is you're working on.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know that you've been kind enough to gift a discount to the Energy 3 Pack members. So that information will all be shared. And it's just such a joy. Honestly, we could be here for hours. I know we could. Like, this is just
for sure.
So much fun, and it's so insightful. I've loved everything you've shared. As I can see in the chat here, the members are also really, really appreciating what's coming through. So thank you for sharing it. Is there any kind of like last little thing that you would like to share before we kind of wrap this formal section up and open the chat up so that we can have a bit of banter and clarify any questions from anybody?
Let's just open it up.
Okay.
And see what people have. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Thank you.